Hello and welcome to the Gallant Few podcast. Premier League is back, and we're back with a preview before it all kicks off. And we're back with our predictions that I don't think any of us got right last season. Joining me tonight, we've got Premier League favourite Jamie. How are you, mate?
Mason, thanks for having me back on. Absolutely fine. I think we've got 2 more sleeps until the Premier League kicks back off. So etching for it.
Yeah, can't say I was too excited about my own team's season starting, so this is a nice little break from that. But before we sort of get onto the Premier League, Jamie, Charity Shield at the weekend, Man City ended up winning on penalties, 1-1 during the game. I'll be honest, I know you boys obviously spoke about it late last week. I'm not a fan of the Charity Shield. I always think it's a bit of a glorified friendly. But what did you make of the game at the weekend?
It was probably more of the same of the FA Cup final at the end of last season. If you think, everybody's expecting Man United, who didn't have a great pre-season, to get put to the sword, and it just didn't turn out like that. City have got some major players missing, your Grealishes, your Fodens, that just weren't available, whether it's because they've just not had a pre-season or so forth. But it was much ado about nothing, really. There was a couple of chances for both teams either half, and it needed a change up front for somebody to make the difference. And I think it was Garnacho that actually came on and done that. To be fair, in the second half, Rashford should have probably had 2 or 3 before the goal went in. But he looks up for it compared to what we did last season. Like direct on the ball, making space. His finishing was just not great. But that probably comes with more game time, really, didn't it? I actually thought Man United were going to sneak it after the Garnacho scored, but I'm going to try and stay impartial and not call him a rat. But Bernardo Silva managed to get an equaliser, and then off they went from there.
Yeah, just to keeping it on sort of them two at the minute, Jamie. We'll start with Man City losing Alvarez in the last couple of days to Atletico. I'd argue that makes them weaker. I know he wasn't someone that started a hell of a lot of games when Haaland was fit, but he was someone that could play different positions. And I said when Haaland was injured, he was the one that was playing. So what's your thoughts on that? I still think they're clear favourites. We'll come on to that as well, just because it's Pep and the quality of player they've got. But it hasn't been really a good window for him so far.
I'm with you. Alvarez was never going to get the game time while Haaland's there. I always felt anytime Alvarez did manage to get games, it was because he was accommodating potentially Foden moving around or Doku or something. It became the front three. There was a period of time though when Haaland was missing last season, and they did require to have Alvarez playing. But you'd be surprised that actually Alvarez featured in something like 53 games last season, whether it was a sub or whether he started. So he definitely had game time. I think the problem was that Alvarez never started the big games. The Champions League semi-finals, and you're always going to start with Haaland, so he kind of knew his place. I'm kind of in 2 bits about it when it comes to City, because it definitely makes them weaker by not having him, because they don't have the same level of quality as a backup striker if they need it to be. But it's also amazing business to buy a player for 14 million with add-ons last season and to sell him for the best part of 90 with add-ons this season. That's mental business for one season. You could argue that he's won pretty much everything in the last 12 months alone, whether it's from Champions League to World Cup to Copa America. But he's got not bad pedigree for being 23, 24 years old. I think Atletico Madrid, I think he will succeed there, because he's very. I'm not going to say he's very Griezmann, but what I mean is Alvarez has got one of those low centre gravity kind of approaches with the ball. He's not going to win, and he's not going to jump up and win a header from 6 yards out, but you give him a little jinky run at the edge of the box and he kind of gets through with them. Griezmann kind of does those kind of things for them as well. But I think Alvarez is going to be suited to the Spanish league so much. By definitely. The one thing I would say is that I think Pep did say he's definitely looking at his youngsters this year. I think they give new contracts to Oscar Bob, McAtee, who was on loan last season, and there was another one, I can't remember his name. So to come out and say those means that potentially they might not do much business this window. But I'm with you. He definitely they're definitely strong without him than with him.
Just seeing as well on Oscar Bob, I think it's just come up on my phone there that he's got a bad injury, hasn't he? So it'd be interesting to see.
FPL drafts all ripped up because everybody's had him in the FPL because I think he's had in pre-season. I think he's had 3 goals and about 4 assists or something like that. So,
I think watching him sort of pre-season, I thought he was going to get a lot more minutes. He was one that I actually said I think he will play a lot, but be interested what they do there with City. But don't tell me your other team, Jamie. Do you still think, even with losing Alvarez, you said, I totally agree with the point you made there. I think he will suit. I think if you sort of pick a country for him to go, I would have picked Spain, and I think it would be a really good signing for Atletico. Yeah. But do you think Man City are gonna win this league again?
I want to say no for a couple of reasons, but I think I'm just a bit of pie in the sky. I think there's something about this being potentially Pep's last season that people are potentially overlooking. And what I mean is that Pep's legacy in his last season, if this is going to be his last one, is it going to be blooding in new players, youngsters, like Klopp, for example, had to do last season? Or is it going to be going and winning 5 Premier Leagues in a row with no managers done 4, never mind 5? There's something about his pedigree that will tell you either way he's probably going to come out good. The difference is that see if City don't start well, they'll go and drop 150 million on 2 players in January. That's the difference. Whereas, for example, if you're thinking about Arsenal or Liverpool, 150 million would get you 3 or 4 players because of the way the teams are set up. You're not going to buy that many players if you're struggling, for example. You're going to maybe wait 1 or 2. City can go and do those kind of things. I'd be surprised if they brought nobody in this window. I don't see many murmurings about people coming in. But if they're setting top 2, top 3 with maybe 2 games in hand or something come Christmas, I totally envisage them going out and spending big to kind of get it over the line, if you like. I probably would make them favourites. I just wouldn't put them 10 points clear kind of favourites this time, if that makes sense.
No, I agree with that. I still think they will win the league. I think it'll go out with 5, but I agree. I think I was more convinced that than winning the league last season than I am this season. I think everyone else will be better this season as well.
I think the big difference that we'll see with City this season compared to previous seasons, if they don't go out and buy anybody, for example, and you've still got Grealish injured, Oscar Bob injured, no Alvarez, you're talking about Haaland and Foden and De Bruyne. De Bruyne can't stay fit. We've seen that over years. That's a lot to ask of Haaland and Foden. So what you'll probably see is a more defensive style from City because they've still got all those wonderful defenders. You could probably pick 6 players right now that would walk into 90% of the teams in the Premier League in their back line. And the fact that they actually didn't lose Emerson when it looked as though Emerson was going to Saudi, he's now staying. So straight away you go, well, okay, Emerson will be one of the top 2, top 3 keepers of the season. Akanji, Nathan Ake, John Stones, Ruben Diaz, Gvardiol sorted, finished well at the end. Kyle Walker, it's a ridiculous back line if they want it to be. What you'll probably see is more defensive than probably attacking that we used to see.
They're just so settled, aren't they? That's the thing. I know, as I said, you look at the depth a little bit in terms of they do get a couple of injuries, you've just said there, but just how settled they are. And they're at the point where, one signing can again kick them on again. You know what I mean? That's what he's built there. So
I think you have to look at their opening fixtures as well. I think I remember seeing it when I was looking earlier. I think their opening fixtures are quite favourable, I would say. They've got Chelsea on the opening game of the season, and then it's Ipswich, West Ham, Brentford. They play Arsenal and Newcastle, but then you've got Fulham, Wolves, Southampton. They've got these squashes of runs where they can actually hammer points out. I think if they go ahead, it's going to be hard for people to chase them down. If they don't start well, and for example, Arsenal start well, or Liverpool start well, or whatever, that's when we'll see what City are made of this season because they're used to chasing when they've got multiple options. If they don't have those options, what kind of chasing is it looking, that they're going to try and pull off?
Yeah, definitely. And whilst we obviously just mentioned Man United, we'll jump to them next. Jamie, I think me and you have been quite clear that we don't see Ten Hag being at Man United long term. We were, I think, both adamant towards the end of last season that he would see out the season, but obviously the FA Cup run and then winning the FA Cup, new contract. How do you think they're going to fare this season? Made a couple of signings himself. Really like the look of the new centre half they bought, Euro. Watched him against us and I thought he looked good, but obviously he's got a bad injury, and that's been a little bit of a theme for Man United, is keeping players fit. So big season this for Ten Hag, because I think that although I'm not a fan, you can't argue he's won 2 cups, but he needs to be way more attacking, I think, this season. I think that's something Man United fans are going to demand, or that will spell the end of him. I think he needs to come out and have a go more.
Yeah, and I think, he's made a couple more signings this week in Manchester Lit and Nusri Mazri, who I think are decent enough players. I think De Ligt was somebody that was destined for the stars, probably just not fruitioned, in his time in Juventus. And then Bayern is he's just not been the same kind of player. I definitely think he's a better player. He's definitely better than your Varans and potentially your Maguires and Johnny Evans and stuff. The one thing I would cause me concern is that Ten Hag signed a new contract, which was inevitable the way they treated him at the end of the season. They were openly courting 4 other managers before they offered him to stay there. But to then allow him to make the same style of transfers as what he's been ridiculed for the past 2 years. So I think I seen it on Twitter. I was yesterday or today. I think that's like his 6th ex-Ajax player that he's brought. Which is mental, considering that he's been absolutely slated for doing the same thing over and over and over in the last few windows. So I don't know what to expect from Manchester United. I said Rashford looked lively, but it was a charity shield. Garnacho looks decent enough. The concern would be that somebody as attacking as Mason Mount shouldn't be touching the team when you've got somebody like Bruno Fernandes. So how do you play the 2 of them together? It's a challenge. I'm not convinced in the lad Højlund up front. We've seen glimpses of him last season, but it was really glimpses. And I'm not convinced that the striker that they brought, the Zirkzee, again, another ex-player he's had under his wing. They paid a lot of money for a lad that I don't think has really proven it. If you look at it, if you think of the 2 strikers they've got, Højlund and Zirkzee, they've spent something like 110 million on the 2 of them.
I do like the look of him though, but I know what you're saying. It's young player coming into the Premier League, big expectation. Man United, it's
the different pressure. I think the different pressure Ten Hag's got at the moment is the fact that Van Nistelrooy's now been brought in as his number 2. I can't help but think if he gets off to a bad start, then the fans will just shout, "Put Van Nistelrooy in charge," and he'll be gone within 5 weeks. Do you get what I mean? Like, that's how fickle we are as fans.
I actually thought that when that was announced. I thought, I wonder if he's.
The fact he turned down being Burnley's number 1 to go there to be number 2 tells you that there must be some kind of promise there. There must be. Do you know what I mean?
I can see that one fitting in for sure. But as you said, especially today, I think it'd be interesting to see how he does. He has fell away since sort of his Ajax days, Juventus, Bayern. If you listen to Bayern fans, they couldn't wait to get rid of him, and they had Eric Dyer in front of him. So that would be a red flag. But I'll be interested to see how he does, because still at a good age, and maybe Man United will suit him more. On to Arsenal, Jamie. What have you made of their? I think their main sign is that right? I'm saying is a centre half from Bologna. Yeah, that's coming for it. And there's a lot of teams after him this window. I see loads of names. I think a lot of clubs in Italy wanted him to stay there. So definitely needed that. But we're all saying the same question with Arsenal: is where's the striker?
I think with the Calafiori one, it's a strange one, because if you look at last season, for example, they spent a lot of money on the young lad Julian Timber, who got a season-long injury on his opening game. He's come back into the team now. They think highly of him, so you'd expect there to be some sort of rotation going into that back line. So you're talking Ben White, Gabriel, and Saliba. You're more than likely not going to rotate Saliba. Saliba's probably going to be your main one. The young lad, the young Polish lad they had last season, Kiori, came into the back line, did pretty decent, and they've still got Zinchenko. I'm not sure Calafiori was the kind of person they were needed to bring in, whilst they are missing glaring options on, for example, the striker or the left wing. Long term, he might turn out to be a decent player. Calafiori might be good alongside Saliba. Gabriel hasn't exactly done anything wrong, though, has he? So that's what I mean. It's like, I get competition for placing squad depth is what Arsenal fans have been talking. I'm just not sure centre-back was the one that they were talking about. There's a lot of talk about Thomas Partey potentially still moving on, which means that you've got Jorginho and Declan Rice, fighting. Needs a bit more depth. The left wing, Martinelli got injured for big periods last season, and Trossard was a makeshift left winger / striker.
Yeah.
Probably expect somebody more long-term to come in there and challenge and stay out on the left, for example. Or you're talking about the strikers where Havertz did prove me wrong last season, but he's still not a striker, So, yeah, I think it's a bit of a weird one. I think it's good business in terms of that he's a big, young up-and-coming player that a lot of people will after. Is it just the right business? I'm not sure.
Well, yeah, I know what you're saying there, and I think if I was an Arsenal fan, the main position for me I'd be screaming for a centre forward, sort of as I said earlier. But it is that depth. I mean, you know more than me, but the game against Liverpool last season, where Arsenal go 2-0 up, I think Arteta tried to change it. Liverpool really second half turned the screw, and Arteta tried to change it and went to a back five, and he brought on the Polish boy, Kirio, centre half, and he had an absolute nightmare. And that's where I can sort of understand it. And there was other times as well where he put centre halves left back, and he did change it around a little bit. So I know what you're saying in terms of that centre half pairing. That is a really, really strong pairing, and probably the best centre half pairing last season in Gabriel and Saliba. But I do think the strength and depth is where Arsenal. That's where it didn't get them over the line. But definitely other positions would be.
See if they brought in a striker or a left winger and then brought in Calafiori, I probably wouldn't say nothing about it. I'd be going, no, that's good business. See the fact that's the first one they've done, then you go in, right, okay, who are they bringing in? There's talk that they're obviously talking to Real Sociedad about Mikel Merino. This was the lad that scored in the Euros. He used to play for Newcastle United at one point. I think he's more of a workhorse. I don't see him changing the team dynamic and, adding all of a sudden 10, 15 goals to the team. I think he's probably been brought in more to challenge the midfield options, which again, not necessarily a bad training.
No.
But see if they're the only two people they bring in, people go, okay, but what about striker? What about left wing? And it's like, are they looking at those options? I don't know.
Yeah. No, definitely. Interesting to actually hear, and we'll come on to predictions in a little while, but a lot of people tipping Arsenal to win the league, so we'll come to that in a minute. And Jamie, last thing I want to talk to you for this to finish up, which I think most people have in their top four, is obviously Liverpool. Arne Slot in a decent pre-season, but again, no signings as yet. There is obviously still 2 weeks to go. I keep saying it's going to happen next week. There's going to be a flurry of transfers. It's going to happen. It hasn't really happened like that. It's been a real poor and boring somewhat in terms of transfers, especially compared to what it was sort of last season. But you're a little bit concerned in there. I still think you've got a fantastic squad. It's going to be different with a new manager, but just no fresh faces coming in the door.
Yeah, I think we spoke last week, and I thought the fact that we were highly linked with Zubamendi meant I was massively pleased if we pulled that one off, because he's obviously a cracking player, young profile, 24, 25, just won the Euros, obviously looking for a bigger challenge. That all but looked wrapped up until Monday morning, when we got the news that politics, shall we say, over in Spain have kind of played a part, and he's decided to stay where he is. I necessarily don't have an issue with that. I don't mind that. Liverpool are famous for having Steven Gerrard, who did exactly the same thing. So I don't have an issue with it. What I have an issue with was the statement that probably come out after or leaked by the journalists, which was that it was either Zubimendi or nobody. You know, they don't want to start bringing people in for the sake of it, and I get that. But when you go back to last season where we failed with Caicedo, we failed with Enzo Fernandez, we failed with Roman Lavia, we now fail with Zubimendi. Why is this number 6 role such an issue? So, you know, it's not a good look for Richard Hughes, who's obviously been brought in to oversee these things, to fall flat, if you like, on his first option. My concern would be that apparently that was his only option. Surely you don't put all your eggs in one basket and you have backups. Do you get what I mean? It sounds a little amateurish. No, I don't think it's amateurish because it's a good setup around, you know, Michael Edwards. The people are well traversed. I'm just more concerned at the statement that said it was either Zubimendi or nobody. Will look again next season. Well, it's quite glaring obvious that we still need a 6. So why would you not have alternative options? Slot said something during pre-season that has me worried. It said that he thinks that Ryan Gravenberch can potentially play a number 6 pivot. So again, we're putting a plaster on something, you know, rather than fixing it. Those kind of things I'm worried about. And it's quite obvious with people like Virgil, Trent, and Salah got 1 year left in the contract. Not that I don't think they won't sign extensions, but there was a statement, I think, by Virgil or a comment in a reporter stating that he's keen to see how the new regime fits in. But that leaves it open because if it doesn't fit in, he's not going to sign.
No.
So the fact that we're not getting the big number 1 targets across the line, I'm not going to say it's a red flag, it's an amber flag, should we say, at the moment. But that being said, we've still got a pool of talent that we're really happy with. We like the strikers, we like the attacking options. I think we'll do pretty well this season. But yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. I think I'd be surprised if we don't bring anybody in this window. I would be surprised.
Yeah, it is. I will as well. I think they will. I don't think you need much. Well, I don't think you need anything in the forward line. It's 2
positions. Need another defender and a number 6, realistically.
Yeah, definitely. Jamie, what do you make of the transfer Solanke to Spurs? 65 million. I mean, a lot of money for. I mean, he did score. I think it was 19 Premier League. Was it 19 Premier League goals last season? So can't argue that's a really good number for a Bournemouth striker. But yeah, what's your thoughts on? Does that give?
Do you know what? I've actually got a soft spot for Solanke because he was 21 years old when Liverpool took him. You know, we signed him from Chelsea. He didn't have. He was never going to get ahead of the likes of Bobby, Salah, and Mo. Mane. So he was always going to be a bit pot. We did good business on him. We let him go with a sell-on clause. So that's why the fee was so big. I think Liverpool had something like a 15-17% sell-on clause. So it had to be decent in order for Bournemouth to obviously allow it to go. I think it was always going to take a bit of Bournemouth. I think we said, the last season, there was a couple of windows ago where Bournemouth was spending 60 million in one window on 2 players. Premier League's filled with money now. I'm sorry, that 60 million is pretty much nothing. You know, you take off Liverpool's selling clause and you're saying that Bournemouth essentially took 45 million for that, maybe 40 million. So it's not, I don't think it's that much of a money. What I would say is that he doesn't need time to settle in the Premier League. He's well versed in the Premier League. He's well travelled. The only cause for concern would you say is that last season was by far his best season in the Premier League. He's had a really good season in the Championship. I think he was only second to, was it Mitrovic when we were coming up from Fulham and they scored an absolute brickload of goals between them. But he's a good age. Well, I would push it back to you. Would you pay 60 million for Richarlison? Would you pay 60 million for Solanke?
Solanke, I think. I've never been a fan of Richarlison, but
they pretty much paid 60 million for Richarlison, didn't they?
Yeah.
So
but I'll caveat that and say I'd rather pay 40 for Tony.
So I'd agree. However, see if you're paying 150k a week for Solanke, but Tony's asking for 300k.
Yeah. Yeah,
because that's the only reason that deal hasn't been done. Or
okay.
apparently he's had a meeting with Arsenal, and Arsenal never came back to the table. He's had a meeting with Tottenham, and Tottenham never came back to the table. Apparently, there's about 3 or 4 teams. Chelsea apparently looked at it. I'm guessing I think he's pricing himself out of moves because it would have been a flat fee with Brentford, whether it's 60 million, 70 million, 80 million. But see, the moment they find out what wages he's talking about, I mean, what's he on at Brentford? It must be about 80k, 60k, 80k.
Yeah, I think I see this actually recently. I think it was about 60. He's not their top paid player.
So if he's looking for 200 grand a week, some clubs will. Now, I'm not saying Solanke's on 150k, but what I mean is like Solanke's obviously had a chunk to go there and do well. I bet you it was a cheaper deal than going for Tony.
Yeah, no, that's what I didn't even think of that. And I mean, be a bit cheeky. That's cheeky that for me because obviously
it's only going to hurt one person. It's only going to hurt him.
Yeah, definitely.
If he stays at Brentford this season, Brentford will be laughing. They'll want a fee for him, obviously, but if he stays there this season and they do something this season, then they'll be laughing.
Yeah.
But if he goes now, they get a pure wedge. The problem is he just needs to drop his demands, from what I hear.
Doing himself out of a big move, and he's 28. So as
we said, if he's had a meeting with Arsenal and they've not come back to the table, he's had a meeting with Tottenham and they've not come back to the table. There was a talk he was meant to be talking to Chelsea. Those are 3 big moves that you've just fucked up.
Yeah,
because he would probably succeed at all 3 of them.
I think Arsenal perfect, tailor-made for him.
Yep, I'm with you on that.
In terms of the player, but another sticking with transfers, we'll mix it up a little bit, Jamie, and then we'll finish off with our prediction. Just before I go into that, there was one prediction from Colin where he said Solanke would sign in. Jamie said
Colin's trying to redeem himself after picking Sheffield United to stay up last season or something, wasn't it? Or finish top 10 or something, I think he says.
He's got Solanke as top goal scorer as well, so he's thrown out a couple of biggies there that I'm sure this podcast will come back to make quite on his one club that's done a lot of business this summer, Jamie, is West Ham. And they've done so much business, I'm actually about to get it all down. It was Somerville from Leeds, Fulkrug from Borussia Dortmund. They got in Rodriguez on a free transfer from Real Betis, and I believe he was close to joining Barcelona before that deal went through. They went and got Todibo from Nice. Again, very
stolen under Milan's noses.
Yeah, that was a loan with an obligation as well. So that'll be next season, which I think is a fantastic deal from West Ham. And then obviously Aaron Wan-Bissaka that was confirmed earlier this morning, 10 to 15 million. Again, I think that's a really, really good deal. I think right back is an area where they've struggled. I'm not a big fan of Soufal, if I'm honest. I think he's very limited.
He's just getting older now, isn't he?
Yeah, for the money, he's been a really good signing. But yeah, and Kilman, obviously another one from Wolves. Obviously, Jules
potentially the best one. Potentially the best signing they've made.
That's what I was going to ask you.
Well, if you go back, you know a lot more about West Ham than me because obviously your neck of the woods. But if you remember this time last season, or let's say last season, we were talking not quite negative about West Ham, but we were worried for West Ham because there was all this talk about them losing something like 12 first-team players because of contracts ended, and 90% of that was all from the back line. Your Ben Johnsons, your Zumas, your Ogbanas, like some not big names but mainstays that. I think the only person that was going to be registered still with them was the goalkeeper Areola and Mavropanos, who hadn't really set the world alight. Agard was rumoured to be leaving, but he looks to be still there. I thought Kilman was a lot of money, but I think it's the right kind of person they need to bring in. Doesn't have to be flash. Kilman has kind of worked his way up. He's solid. He was the captain, I think, at Wolves for the majority of last season. He's that kind of player that kind of suits West Ham, I think. So I think he's a good one. I'm interested to see how Fulkrug plays, just purely for the fact that he was so good last season, and he had a pretty decent Euros. The only concern I would have, and I joked about this in the WhatsApp, is that West Ham have a tradition of breaking number 9s who have done well in their home country to come over here and it just doesn't work out. Scamacca being the forefront of that.
Who's the other one there?
Who?
Who's the other one there for Haller?
Haller, yeah, Sebastian Haller, that's it. But a lot of their signings have kind of, they make you look and go, oof, they've actually done well there. I'm more impressed that actually they've managed to attract these names as probably more than anything else, because it's a bit of an unknown with having a new manager, a new transfer strategy, if you like. It's a bit of unknown there. They're probably paying top dollar, let's be honest, in terms of wages. But I'd be very excited if I was a West Ham fan. The first name you said, Somerville. How does he get in that team now?
2025.
But what I mean is, you up front you've got Fulkrug, you've got Kudos, you've got Bowen, you've got Paqueta still there. But where does Somerville come in? He's a good option. It's just like,
I think again with West Ham, it was a case of talking about strength and depth. I think that was their issue. A couple of injuries where they dropped a lot of points last season. That defence, I think that's the big one for me. And the manager's come in and he's obviously looked at the defence and he's not happy with that at all. Will throw that. I think Todibo is going to be, so far, I think he's the signing of the summer so far. I know there's.
I probably don't know enough about him. That's why I probably picked Kilman, because actually I think if he does well there.
Yeah. No. I was just really, really impressed when I see him. I was surprised they managed to pick Juventus to get him as well. Wages they must be, but they also must be planning to get rid of a few players, as you said, because Agued's still there. Zuma was meant to be going, but I think he might have the medicals. Something come up in the medical I read yesterday.
I think he was terminating his contract anyway, though, weren't they? So if he doesn't go there, he's going to go somebody else, from what I understand. Kudos is probably the one you've got questions about, because there was talk about a transfer clause of a fee, if you like, if a team matched that. I think he was always bought with the intention that he would always move on.
Yeah.
He's not a kind of player that sits on the bench, in my opinion. So if he doesn't start the games, is he going to angle for a move? The one question I would have over the whole of West Ham is this Paqueta business. Whilst that is still unresolved, and what I mean is he's quite pivotal to how West Ham play. When West Ham play good, he gets in, he threads balls through, he's on the edge of the box, he contributes. I'm still fully expecting him to probably get the biggest ban the FA's ever handed out, over this alleged spot fixing. And we could do a whole pod on what he's done and how he's done it and whether it's right or whether it's wrong. I'm still fully expecting them to throw the book at him, because it's so bad, in terms of calling the game into disrepute, we should have said. And the only barometer I've got for it, there's a piece actually I found on Twitter. Somebody wrote a piece where there was a guy from non-league that had done the exact same thing, and he was banned for 2 years for 2 bets. Apparently, Paqueta's is like three figures in terms of the amounts of bets that apparently have been an issue.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if this is the biggest ban that they hand out. So again, there's a question mark over Paqueta, whether or not he's still going to be there. What kind of format is he just going to be banned, or are they just going to sell him before he gets banned? And I don't know what. I
do think this is the West Ham sporting director. Previously, I think he was previously at Borussia Dortmund as well. He was waiting for a window like this where he'd had sort of full control. Moyes obviously had a big say, and rightly so previously. I think this is a case of, right, let me flex my muscles.
They're not buying McTominays and Maguires, are they?
No, exactly. It's flipped, isn't it? Quite quickly. Fulham, though, I agree. Do you know what, though? There's going to be interesting to see how they set up this season in terms of previously with Moyes and obviously all the new players. It will be, I think it's quite an interesting one. The expectancy, I'm hearing it a lot, as I said down here, that put them in for top 4. That's what they're.
I was about to say, what is going to constitute to a good season for West Ham? Is it just getting back into Europe, or is it actually a challenge to top 6, top 4?
I think getting back into the Europa League will be what I think the headed level. I think they'll expect to do that. I think there'll be some shouts for top 4 because of the new signings. But I think a really good season, don't get me wrong, for West Ham would be to get back into that Europa League. So 6th, Fifth, I think, is a great season. I still think they're, even with the new signings, there's a lot of players that have got to settle.
I still think they're short.
Yeah, no, I do.
Yeah.
I agree. I still think there's teams that above them that I still think have got more quality in areas. So, but yeah, it was said definitely one to watch for them. And with the transfers being so quiet, it's one that every time you sort of look at a transfer reminds it seems to be West Ham. Jamie, for the teams that have come up this season, Ipswich, Southampton, and Leicester, I'm interested for your thoughts on firstly Ipswich, Southampton, and Leicester. Straight back up after going down. Well-established Premier League clubs before they got relegated. To be fair, I think they both had a good run in the Premier League, so they'll want to sort of continue that. But how do you think Ipswich are going to fare this season?
So I'm kind of torn on it because I want to say I think they'll do really well because it's the swan song. If you look at it's been 20 odd years since they were in the Premier League, they finally fought their way back to it, and they're going to do this tremendous, have a tremendous time about it. However, I would say cast you back to this time last season. Burnley had just delivered one of the best seasons ever in the Championship, and we were all saying, I think Burnley will stay safe, and they were absolutely honking. We said Luton would probably do well because they're at home, and they did for a couple of games, but they ultimately went down. I can't help but think that Ipswich, oh gosh, are just a dream for everybody. Everybody's getting hyped up, going, "Oh, Amari Hutchinson, they signed him on a permanent. He only scored 12 goals last season." And I say only 12. I don't mean that to be a discredit, but it's like 12 goals doesn't keep you in the Premier League. I think they've got some nice players. I like the look of the lad up front. I think, I forgot his name. Is it Delap, ex-City youngster? I think he's a good wee player. I like Amari Hutchinson. There's another good player. They've got a couple of good players. I just can't help but think about how Burnley shat the bed and made us all look like plums last season. That would say that I'm going to go with the safe bet and say that Ipswich is still going to be in the bottom three.
Yeah, you make really good points there. I've not learnt my lesson. I think
you're going to put top 10 in you. Look at you.
No, I think they've got a chance. I think they've got a chance.
A chance of what? A chance of what?
No, staying up. I can't. What I will sort of say, I can understand why people would sort of jump to Leicester. More chance of staying up because Cooper's obviously got experience in the Premier League. He's kept the team up in the Premier League. But I do kind of like I'll put even McKenna. I'd put him. I think he'll deal with the Premier League better than Vincent Kompany did. And I've watched.
If you've seen the Kompany clips from this week, then you'll probably go, well, yeah, he's definitely a people person.
even before that, though, Jamie, I'm never a fan of Vincent Kompany in management. I remember seeing something similar with Anderlecht, him in the change room, and it just doesn't sit. It didn't sit right. I just thought it doesn't sort of suit. And then watching his Burnley team previous to that, I can't say I was jumping for joy watching him. I think McKenna, be interested how he does it because he can't be as sort of open and but I think they'll play with a bit of no fear, and I do. I think out of them.
Don't get me wrong. I want them to do well because, as I said, it's been so long since they've been there.
Yeah.
I do want them to do well. I think you look at the first two games that they've got Liverpool at home and then they're away to City. Now, realistically, I'm not going to put a kiss of death on my own team and say we're going to win the game, but you're not expecting much from those first two games as from an Ipswich point of view. You're just expecting to have a good time and be present. But straight away, let's just say they don't get nothing. 2 games in, they're sitting on 0 points, and you go, "Fuck!" It's we see it so many times in the Premier League, don't we?
It can happen as well. You're right. It can happen, and they can take the wind out of yourselves quite quickly. Just on the other two, really quickly, then Jamie, Southampton and Leicester. Russell Martin for Southampton had a good spell, obviously, in the Championship last season. Dropped off quite dramatically, and then they managed to sort of get it back together and keep their nerve to get into the back up to the Premier League through the playoffs. And Leicester, Maresca getting them up. We'll touch on Chelsea in a second, but Cooper comes in there. I'd say you look at their squad and compare it to some of the other teams down there. I don't think there's too much in it, so they've definitely got an opportunity, Leicester. But do you think either of them? Again, we'll come to predictions in a minute. Do you think, if you
think all three go down? I think all three go down. Yeah. Leicester have still got this hearing over them about whether or not they're potentially going to get done for breaches of PSR. So they realistically could end up with, let's just say they end up with a 6-point deduction. Straight away, they're in the bottom three. You're going, fuck, here they go. Southampton are probably the most cleanest out of it. However, if you look at the team, it still looks a very championship team.
Goals. Where's the goals coming for Southampton?
Yeah. Adam Armstrong for me just doesn't. He's not a Premier League player. I don't mean to do him a disservice, but
he's a good Championship striker, isn't he?
Yeah. I know they've been trying to bring in players. Obviously they made an offer for Matt O'Reilly, which you can see that them going to a team like that to add an injection of in midfield guile. Whether he's going to end up there, I don't think so. But they're obviously trying these things. But if you go through the team, it looks very Championship material. And I'm not trying to do them as a service, but Southampton probably are the new Norwich or the new West Brom, where they're just yo-yoing teams, go up and down, get the parachute payments and kind of steady the boat. Leicester shouldn't be, but you look at I like some of Leicester's attacking options. They've got some unknowns in Fatawa, Mavidi, but they've still got Jamie Vardy and they've still got Daka, who, not that Jamie Vardy's terrible, but he's just clocking on now, isn't he, unfortunately? Yeah. They don't have any Achu anymore. He's now moved abroad. So you're just thinking, well, what do Leicester actually really have? I think one of their players of the season last season was Harry Winks, who's a bit of a box-to-box midfielder. He went to the Championship because he couldn't get a game in the Premier League. So I don't want to try and do him a disservice, but I feel like I'm doing it though.
No. So, I think he's a good Championship player.
Yeah. I mean, I would even go as far as saying I've put Everton in my bottom three for the last 3 years, which is since we've obviously been doing this. Everton have brought smart this window, which would put Leicester, Southampton, and Ipswich in the shit. Do you get what I mean? Like that's the kind of way I'm judging it. Is that some of the teams that they would expect to be around them have actually signed pretty decent.
Yeah, and just going, we'll jump to Everton then, because I know you like talking about them. They've lost Anana to Aston Villa. They brought in Jesper Lindstrom. I actually think that's a good signing for Everton.
They got some serious money for Anana.
Yeah,
that was crazily,
Okay. What's your thoughts on that? What do you think of Anana? I'm not sold.
No, absolutely not. I think I've seen him probably play about 2 good games in the whole time he was there. He was always arguing with refs and other players and stuff. He's a leggy character. He's very long-legged and he's got a great stride, but for the fee that they paid for him, Aston Villa, I don't see that one at all. Maybe Emery's thinking he can get something out of him, but I think it's good business from Everton to kind of get him off the books at that price. But with Everton, I think they've actually brought some decent players.
Yep.
They brought the lad. They brought the lad. Do you remember the lad that was at Sheffield United that got sold the opening day of the season? Ndai, who went to France. Didn't do any great in France, but they've got money issues, so they needed to get rid of him. So they brought him in, which bolsters their attack. As you said, they brought in the lad Linders, who seems to be a decent enough player. They've spent some serious money on the young lad that they brought in from France for centre back. I forget his name. I'm interested to see how he got on. I've seen him a couple of times in last season on TNT, and played. I think he scored a couple of goals as well from the games that I've seen. So again, you just think him and Branthwaite, you just think that's actually quite decent. Young centre backs partnership. You could that kind of makes sense. So yeah, I'm not going to shit on Everton this season. I don't think, because I kind of expecting something a lot better from them.
Yeah, and then just Aston Villa, we just said that Anana there, Champions League football for Aston Villa, which I think is it's a completely different kettle of fish. I think you're in that competition. Great for him to be there. Ross Barkley's come back, which gives him a good squad option, and he had a really good season, obviously, at Luton last year. Ian Maatsen, I think that's a great signing. I was a big fan of Chelsea.
Yeah, they're good.
Go. And Anana, but just again, sort of squad depth for Villa, I would still flag. I think if you get we see like with Newcastle, you have a couple of bad results in the Champions League, it naturally can affect the Premier League, and it's just that intensity on a Wednesday, and then you go again on the weekend where I think Villa, I don't think they'll get top four again this season.
No, I'm actually more surprised that there's so many people putting them in the top four.
Mm-hmm.
In their predictions with pundits and stuff. I'm actually more surprised that people are putting Aston Villa in that kind of conversation. I just don't see it. I think, as you said, the European football will take it out of them a little bit. They've probably got the best type of manager to balance that in terms of Unai Emery. He's well experienced, he's well versed, so I think he'll do okay. But I don't think they've added that much quality to the team. And Maatsen, really like Maatsen. I don't think Onana is the same level as Douglas Luiz. And I think they've been asking, well, they've lost to Diaby, who I really like. He got a fair few goals last season, and I don't think they've replaced them. There's still time for them to do something, but I think they'll do what Newcastle did. I think they'll look at the Champions League. They'll try the best in the Champions League, but I think they'll probably finish top six ish, and be lucky to get out of the group if they can.
Yeah, and just the last team I want to touch on before we come to predictions, Jamie, is we have to mention them. It's Chelsea. Personally, don't think Maresca will be there. Johnny, that one as well. I don't think Maresca gets till Christmas.
No, I'm with you. I think he's gone by Christmas.
I can't understand this appointment. The signings, the whole signing strategy, I think it's messy. Pedro Neto is the latest one. 35th player to be signed permanently under Todd Bowley as well. Good player on his day, but just so injury prone. And I'm still trying to understand. I mean, I know why they're doing it. It's for money. Obviously, the Conor Gallagher deal to Atletico, they want that money in for financial fair play. But I look at that midfield and I'm just like, who are you replacing him with? What is going on with Chelsea? They've had a really bad.
Well, I think the problem that everybody has with Chelsea is name their starting 11 this weekend.
Yeah.
And you don't know where to start, do you? Because you've got 5 goalkeepers, you've got 4 centre backs, you've got like 6 left backs, two right backs, and about 12 midfielders. You've got, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely mental. And I thought it was funny this week that we've seen the new contracts have been signed by Cole Palmer. He signed like a 7-year contract. I guess he was always going to be rewarded for his season. They probably brought him on, let's just say it was 60 grand. He's probably going to be double his money just to kind of make sure he stays there, which is fine. But apparently they're doing the same with Nicholas Jackson. Now, I don't think he had that much of a good season. But there is a school of thought that's going to be coming with Chelsea that probably does make a better sense further down the line. And the school of thought is that because of the Abramovich bookkeeping issues that's going on with the FA, apparently the outcome of that will be known within the next 3 months. And it's probably expected that they might end up with a transfer ban, hence the reason why they're potentially stockpiling now.
Yeah.
But that's just a school of thought. That's just, journos putting their thoughts together on trying to rationalise what the hell it is Todd Bowley is doing. When the reality is probably just sit and play fancy manager and just going, right, who can I bring in? And doing that way.
It is, it just doesn't, it's messy. And even the appointment of Maresca, I think it's just, messy.
Well, the funny thing is, apparently they're still talking to Osimhen, which apparently has got a buyout clause for about 95 million. So you'd like, surely not, but it looks as though they might be. You just can't help but laugh. I feel bad for them, but
you know what? Laugh, frustrated. I mean, we're struggling to spend £2 million at the minute on a player. So these teams, spending this money is absolutely crazy. But Jamie, what's your top 4 prediction then for this season?
Oh God, I'm going to get burned for this, but I'm going to go Liverpool. I'm going to go Liverpool purely for the fact that nobody expects us to do it. I think City will finish second. I think Arsenal will finish third. Fourth, I'm going to go Tottenham for fourth. And I think, Villa, Chelsea, and Man U and Newcastle will be fighting for the remaining spots. But yeah, top four, I'm going to say Liverpool, City, Arsenal, and Tottenham.
Yeah, Liverpool, that was the first one. But listen, you never know. You could get off to it.
I'll be right one day.
Yeah. I've gone with Man City to win it again. Liverpool, I've gone second.
Okay.
Arsenal third, and Spurs fourth.
Can I ask why you put Arsenal third over Liverpool? Sorry, Liverpool over Arsenal?
I still personally, I've said this for a while. I still don't see the hype with Arsenal. I think Liverpool dropped silly points towards the end of last season, and I think they would have finished. I think they would have finished above Arsenal. There was other games where Liverpool. I mean, how many times did Liverpool go a goal behind last season as well?
3-1 was the favourite score, wasn't it?
I don't think that happened this season. I think Szoboszlai, you got McAllister in there as well. The front five you've got. I think you've still got the ammunition to run City closest, even though Arsenal, can't take. Maybe being harsh on them. I still think I don't know. I still not. I'm not keen. I'm still not over enjoyable this Arsenal side. They haven't won nothing.
I think the one thing for Arsenal, I think is going to go against them. It's a massive oversight by Arsenal fans as they expect the team to remain the same as what it did last season. And what I mean by that is that Arteta made very, very few changes because I think it was like 9 players started something like nearly 30 games together out of the 15 that they had, and that's very unheard of. I think when Liverpool won the league, Liverpool did something like that. They had very, very limited changes. You get the consistency. But see the next season, we had like 4 defenders out within the first 3 weeks and 2 midfielders out. We had midfielders playing centre back and stuff. I just don't think Arsenal can expect that kind of injury record this season. I know they had long-term injuries to people like Julian Timber and Zelensky, but you give Saka a couple of weeks out, you give Havertz a couple of weeks out, you give a Declan Rice a couple of weeks out, and you go, they might be a bit thin there. That's probably the difference for me with them.
Yeah, no, I've got to agree with that. The Colin's gone with Arsenal to win the league. He's gone with City second, Man United third, and Spurs fourth.
So he's just anti-Liverpool as well, isn't he?
Yeah, he's definitely there. Graham's also gone with Arsenal to win the league. City second, Liverpool third, and Man United fourth. So Man U going in there both for Graham and Colin. And Johnny's gone with Arsenal as well. So there's 3 out of 5 of us going for Arsenal to win the league. City second, Man United. Liverpool.
No, I think Johnny was City top, Arsenal second, Liverpool third, and Chelsea fourth.
He had a late change.
Oh, did he?
He had a late change with Arsenal. We'll ask him again tomorrow. Probably change his mind. But he's got Chelsea in that top 4. There's no bias going on there, is there?
No.
So that was the top 4. Bottom 3, Jamie. I think you've said the same 3 that's come up. Right?
I think the same 3 that come up, just purely for the difference of. I think squad depth will play a big thing, but I just look at the 3 teams that are coming up, and they just look like championship teams. Is probably the best thing, the softest thing I can say about it.
No, I've got to go with that. I'd change it a little bit. I went with Leicester to go down, Forest, and Southampton. I've nailed in. I've gone with Ipswich.
I think Forest will do. I think Forest will do well this season. Yeah. I think if you look at their opening fixtures, they're like their first 8 fixtures. They've got a really good run in terms of not playing the bigger teams. I think if they get consistency out of people like Elanga, Hudson-Odoi, and Chris Woods and stuff, I think they'll be absolutely fine.
I just can't. Not a fan.
You just don't like Nuno.
I just don't. I don't know. It doesn't inspire me at all. Just the football, the style. So that's why I've gone in there with that. Graham's gone with Brentford. We'll have to ask him on that one. Again, they had a really poor season last year compared to the others, so maybe they are in the decline. Yeah. Forest as well, and he's got Southampton to his bottom 3. Johnny, Forest again, Leicester and Ipswich, and Colin, Forest.
So I'm the only one that hasn't won Forest.
Yeah. So
Okay.
you've got them having a good season, and all of us have got them going down. So I wonder who's gonna be right there. The bottom three is always a good one on this podcast. If like quite early on, we can see who's definitely in the mix for it. Jamie, so you're signing of the season so far. Obviously, there's still 2 weeks, so maybe I'll bring this up again.
Yeah, I think it's far too early to be calling on signings in terms of who's the best. What I would say, there's probably a couple I do like. I think Fulkrug at West Ham I like the look of, and actually I'm going to say I quite like the look of Fabio Carvalho, who just left Liverpool to go to Brentford. He'll get game time at Brentford. He scores goals every time everywhere he goes, and he's had a really good pre-season. I can see him playing up top with the likes of Mbeumo and Tony and being that third alternative. I like the look of him. Not saying he's going to be top goal scorer or anything, but I just mean I think people are overlooking him a little bit. But Solanke, I like the look of going to Tottenham just purely for the fact he's went to Tottenham. But I think it's still too early to be saying signing of the window probably for me. But I like the look of some of them.
Yeah, no, that is true. Again, maybe we'll bring this up again in a couple of weeks so we can get the full window out of the way. I said earlier, I went with Todibo for the moment. Colin's obviously gone with Solanke, and Graham and Johnny have also gone with Fulkrug as well at West Ham. And a little shout out for Johnny as well for Emil Smith Rowe to Fulham, which again, a decent player, hasn't played much.
I think that's a good shout. I think he's a good wee player to go there. I think it's probably a good kind of club for him to kick on with.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. I agree with that. And then to finish it up for tonight with our predictions, Jamie, who do you think will be the first manager sacked?
I'm going to say, I think it'll either be Russell Martin or it'll be Ten Hag. I think Maresca gets till Christmas. I think Ten Hag probably gets to November. Russell Martin will be under the cosh if they don't have a decent start to the season. I think Leicester will stick with somebody like Steve Coppell a lot more. I don't think he's going to go anywhere. And obviously, Ipswich are not going to punt their manager either. So you're looking elsewhere, really, aren't you? I think Ten Hag's on shaky ground just because of what we've already discussed. I would probably hazard a guess of somebody like Southampton will probably ditch their manager first.
Me, Johnny, and Colin, who have we all gone with?
I'm going to say Nuno because obviously he's a all bloody Forest down.
Yeah. Oh no, tell a lie. Me, Graham, and Johnny have gone with Nuno. Colin's actually gone with
Eddie.
Eddie Howe.
I know. I thought Eddie Howe would be gone by Christmas last year, if you remember. Because
he should have.
Champions League, but for some reason they stuck with him.
Well, they've got Europa League though, haven't they, this season?
Yeah.
We haven't really touched on Newcastle, but squad's looking more or less the same as last year. Still got Isaac. That's the big one for them. Yeah,
there's some good fixtures obviously in the first weekend as well. You've got Chelsea and Man City on the Super Sunday, Leicester Spurs on the Monday, and then you've got Man U Fulham obviously in the opener on Friday night. How Liverpool have landed a 12:30 kickoff of the first game of the season. Klopp would be fucking just sitting grinning, wouldn't he? Just going, fuck's sake. Do you know what I mean? West Ham Villa looks, that's a 5:30 on the Saturday night. That could be a bit of a barnstormer based on what we said.
Yeah.
But I'll go West Ham winning that one, definitely.
That's definitely game of the weekend, I think, for me when you look at the fixtures.
Yeah.
I'll go with that one. I think there's some other good ones, but yeah, that would be the pick. All that's left to do is thanks for tonight, Jamie. Getting the predictions in there. They're locked in now, so I'm sure we can get them right back over in the next few weeks. Just a little shout out. Make sure you get keep your eye out on the socials, and we've got a fantasy football Premier League as well. I'm actually going to give it a miss this year, though. I know that's really boring, but I just last 2 years I've just not kept up with it. But doesn't mean you shouldn't We've got good prizes, so make sure you keep out for the socials, and I'll make sure I put them in the description as well. So thanks for tonight, Jamie.
Thank you.
And we'll be back next week to go over the results as they come in. But as always, thanks for listening.